Hi, my name is Chris Liddle, and I am the host of The Lifestyle Chase. In 2018, I started this show to have meaningful conversations. I've interviewed over 100 different people, both in and out of the fitness industry. This podcast is something I'm incredibly proud of. Welcome to Season 4. Thanks for joining me.
All right, so welcome back to The Lifestyle Chase. I have brought a first-time podcast episode guest to the show. Her name is Marr. How are you doing today?
Nervous. This is my first podcast. I've never done this before. And I, when you asked me to do this podcast, I was like, you know what? I don't know about this. This is new. I'm going into surgery soon. Maybe I'll just wait and procrastinate. But, life is all about taking chances and risks and getting outside of your comfort zone. So even though I'm nervous, I'm really glad that I said yes.
That's good. Yeah. That is good. Yeah. I mean, one preface is honestly, most people that know me well would describe me being more scared of other people than other people are of me. So you're on the right show. Like, this is a very easygoing, very conversational show to be on. Part of the reason why I was motivated to get you on the show was we were chatting on Instagram about how you are starting your new journey in life. You're kind of taking some time for yourself. You're going into more of a self-employed direction. You're focusing more on sort of a representation of balance between work and life, which is super, super important. But first and foremost, some people don't know who you are yet. So how would you introduce yourself? Let's say you're doing a big presentation and you need people to understand what you're passionate about and what drives you in a matter of 2 minutes or less.
All right. Well, like Chris said, my name's Amanda. I am a fitness trainer. I've been in the industry working as an in-person trainer at a large box gym for about 6 years now. I've been working with mostly general population, but over the years, I have really tailored a lot of my clients to folks who want to build strength, drop some body fat, work on their confidence, both inside the gym and outside of the gym. And they're individuals that are extremely motivated in life, but also have a very, they have a life outside of the gym, whether it be family and work, but also any activities outside of the gym. I'm always advocating for cross-training and different activities. So a lot of my folks, they do yoga, they run, they do a lot of hiking, they might do some mixed martial arts, they might do swimming is a really big one that I have too. So just cross-training in different things besides just strength training in the gym. And, I worked my in-person gig for about 6 years. Learned a lot. But like Chris said, I was ready for a change, and I found myself in a position where I needed to regain who I was as a person. And that was really important to me because I preach that to my clients, that you have to make some personal time for yourself. And I wasn't making any personal time for myself. 6 years went by in a blink of an eye. I don't regret any of it. I worked with some amazing people that, I became really, really close with. But I just didn't get that personal satisfaction for me. Definitely got a work satisfaction, which, like I said, I enjoy and I really miss it. But it was time for me to think about what my future was going to look like. And I also have a really big passion for travel and photography. So working in a remote coaching business, which is what I'm doing now, allows me to have the opportunity to be out on the road anywhere. So my business is mostly focused on remote coaching. You do the program on your own, or the clients do the program on their own, and there's weekly check-ins, monthly calls. I have an exercise library, and you get full access to me whenever you need it. So yeah, it's a big change, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I think the cool things that you outline are just the fact that we need to kind of like lead by example, both in like the fitness aspect, but also in the lifestyle aspect. And that's been a big like turning point for a lot of people during this whole COVID thing, like where people were kind of tested. Like we were up against the wall. It was like, what are you going to do in this situation? So if we dive into that topic, like 2020 comes around, things are unfolding, everything's changing, the industry gets its ass kicked. How did your day-to-day change? Like, how did you manage with everything these past couple of years?
I think in the beginning of March of 2020, it was really, really hard to make that transition. I was lucky working at the place that I did to have a really good support team and also a great team of clients. So we jumped on board with virtual training right away. And a lot of my folks stayed really consistent because it was that one thing that they had in their life that could stay consistent. So we were able to get them equipment, able to, take their gym program into the home or into a park wherever they were going, set up a camera, get the workout in, and just have that consistency because life was a mess. And it was so imperative for us to have, something that kept us going every single day, something that was for ourselves. And then when we reopened the gym in July, I think it was, my folks were so ready to come back. they were like, F COVID, we're going back to the gym. So I was really, really fortunate to have such a very supportive team and a dedicated team as well. And they were just hyped to get back into the gym. And I think that we were all in it together. Mm-hmm. And it was also really cool to see how my programming changed as well, because things that I used to do before COVID and after COVID also changed a little bit too. So I was able to develop myself further as a coach, do a lot more research and, tailor my programming a little bit differently too. So it was a stressful time, but I think in terms of the gym and my career, it was actually very beneficial. I know it sounds a little weird, but it was beneficial to have kind of that turning point for me.
Well, I mean, it doesn't sound too weird because I've literally been telling people like how beneficial like challenges in life can be. Like, in a lot of cases, the more obstacles that you face, whether it be in your like training history or in your career trajectory, the more obstacles you face, the more skills you end up having. And then those skills become like value adds, or they become like assets to your like personality, or just like the things that you bring into your life going forward. We're going to pivot the conversation here to go into the handy dandy time machine. So if we go back like 12 years, where does that put you in life? What are you up to?
So 12 years ago, I got to do math, which is always hard for me. I always joke with my clients that I can't count because I can't. I go from 2 to 6 in a matter of like that. So 12 years ago, I must have been, I think I was a recent grad from college. Yeah, about 12 years ago. And I guess it was kind of like a little bit of a turning point for my fitness journey myself. So I'll back up a little bit during my adolescence. So I did not grow up being a very active individual. I did a lot of horseback riding. So I was, outside and in the barn with all the horses, but I was also a band geek, so I didn't really have this awareness of what fitness was. I was last picked in gym class. I got yelled at every gym class because I couldn't, throw, kick, or catch any ball. And so I had a very negative view of fitness and sports and athleticism. and also a very negative view of coaches and trainers because they really were very intimidating. So this whole, athletic world to me was very foreign. And, one day that I was in college, I said to myself, enough. I don't like how I look. I don't like how I feel. Let me just go to a gym. So what I did is I went to a small fitness center that was located in the living community of my huge school. I went to UMass my first year. So there's like 30,000 people there. And so I go to this little fitness center because it was safe. It was away from, the big strong lifters, the, heavy equipment, because I didn't know what I was doing. But I went consistently doing the same routine every single day. And I kept that up for a number of years, even when I transferred to another school in DC. And after I graduated, my father actually gave me a year membership to a gym that was up the street. And this is where my life completely turned around. I started to feel more comfortable in the gym. I started to meet more people. I started to, learn more about strength training. I had some of the trainers and, friends that were there show me different weightlifting techniques. And I really was able to form a community of people that were safe to me. I'm a very introverted individual. And it was really hard for me to step outside my comfort zone. But what I loved about having this community was it was all people that were trying to make themselves healthier and better. And that was something that I was very embarrassed to do when I was younger. I was embarrassed to go to the gym. I was embarrassed to try to make my body look a different way, feel a different way, and work on myself, which looking back is really kind of a shame. And I'm sure that there's other people out there who kind of feel the same way. So after strength training for a little bit, I got a really good groove in, and I found a community of people and became a gym rat. But I never thought in a million years that I would ever become a trainer. I used to be scared of trainers because I thought they would laugh at me or make fun of me. And I just, I didn't want to have that. So yeah, to become a coach and a trainer to help other individuals who may feel the same way or to help get people get a lot stronger is amazing. And I love it.
So you're talking about how you were at school and you're part of this gym community, but what were you taking in school? Like, what was your life's path? Where did you foresee yourself heading? Because you didn't necessarily have the expectation that you're going to go into the fitness industry. So where were you going?
So after I graduated school, I was a communications major. So I ended up creating my own major. I couldn't really decide what it was I wanted to do with my life. So my guidance counselor or, your go-to person at school. He told me, create your own major. And so what I did is I took classes from photography, public relations, marketing, film, and journalism. And it allowed me to have exposure to all things that I enjoyed doing. And then I actually went into the event planning industry for a number of years. And I worked at a small nonprofit association planning board of director meetings and conferences with my team. And for a long time, I thought that was going to be my path. My father is actually in the hospitality industry. And so I grew up with, having exposure to hotels, planning events, helping with community events. And so I thought it was going to be a very natural progression. But when I was trying to find a different career or a different job, because the job that I had, it wasn't going to go anywhere. There was nowhere for me to grow as an individual. And so I started looking for different positions out there. And nothing really stuck at all. And I remember I went on my final interview, which was an event planning position with National Geographic. And I was just Oh, I was so excited. And knowing that I love events, I love photography, I look up to those photographers. I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. Like, I'm going to nail this interview. Didn't get the position, but there was nothing that I would have changed about the interview. And, you know, after that week of hearing back that I did not get the position, I just kind of wiped my hands and said, you know what? Let me just go for my personal training certification. What's the worst that can happen? I love training for myself. I do like helping people a lot, but where can this go? So as I was studying for my personal training certification, I realized immediately, I think in the first 3 chapters of the NASM book, that this was it. Like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is speaking to me right now. And I studied my ass off for about 2 or 3 months and got my certification and immediately started getting job offers. And I'm like, oh, this is what a job offer is supposed to feel like. So I had my pick of different gyms that I could go work at, but I decided to pick one in particular because I really admired the professionalism and the team that was there. And so that's how my career progressed a little bit. Went from event planning and transitioned into the fitness space.
Well, I mean, that sounds solid. Like, just to be able to get those little snapshots, I think are very important to understanding like what makes different coaches and trainers and just human beings in general, who they are. And one thing that I like to kind of showcase is you talked about kind of like making your own like major in school. And some of those subjects are extremely transferable to, well, remote coaching specifically, just because there's a lot of communication skills that you would have developed and gotten like very legitimate training on. And it's a big differentiating factor. Like, I know for myself, I took general studies in university and took a lot of like human resources and public relations classes that totally attributed to my abilities as a coach, and just to be able to communicate with people through online platforms and even like navigate current events. Like, I took a media relations course to give me like a view on like right-wing media and left-wing media and all that stuff, and that proved to be very helpful in being able to like set boundaries and be able to kind of take a step back when necessary. And as a human being, obviously I'm going to get like sort of overtaken or swept away by certain things, but just another lens to the whole equation, because we're dealing with people who have all kinds of things in their life. Like, the people we work with do not like worship the gym. Like, they're at the gym because they realized that they needed that to be added to their life, but they didn't quite have the autonomy to do it by themselves yet. And so they're seeking out our consultation to add to that skill set of theirs. Otherwise, they'd just be doing it by themselves, just like you or I have often done in our past life. What was sort of like the thing that motivated you most to go and take that certification? Like, sometimes like something happens in life, or something just like it's a spark in our brain. What was it for you?
In the beginning, it was frustration. But it was also passion as well. So you had mentioned, some of the topics that you had back in college and that they were things that you liked. Well, everything that I did in college, I also really liked. And I'm somebody who wears their heart on their sleeve. When I don't like something, the world knows it. And so I was very fortunate that I could take subjects in school that I was very passionate about and have a hobby or develop a hobby that I was very passionate about. And when I decided to go for the certification, I had hit rock bottom when it came to job interviews. And I had been on so many interviews, countless rounds with all different sorts of, hotels, event planning industries, even government contractors. Nothing really seemed to fit. But I knew that the fitness space, nutrition, and a person's well-being was something that I was very passionate about. And I'm very fortunate that I've been able to, make my passion a career. And I feel very lucky in that regard because I love what I do. I truly do. And I think, to briefly answer your question, frustration in the beginning, but then it was also, I think, passion, at the very heart of everything.
Mm-hmm. When you first kind of got started, and like, I guess I'll kind of share a bit of my stories because it usually helps like the guest to sort of like unpack theirs when they hear the host unpack theirs. So it's interesting for me to hear about like the job offers that came up when you started your career, because like ironically mine was very much the opposite. And I'm not like saying that like to be like to toss shade. It's just that every trainer has a different entry to the industry, and so we learn different lessons accordingly. Throughout that, one of the things that was sort of like, it drove me crazy when I first started at my first gym, for the beginning like month or so, it was basically like a trial paid internship. So essentially, I got hired to the gym on a trial basis that if I could prove myself, then they would hire me on as a trainer. Meanwhile, there was other trainers that just got hired in right away because they had prior experience or they had demonstrated more confidence. So I always felt like the dumbest person in the facility. And it was just like, it drove me nuts. Like it was something that really motivated me going into my career, and that's what kind of like gave me the desire to network and to really take people seriously when they took time to teach me things. Like I have so many people to give credit to that have helped me along the way, both locally and far away. But I've always kind of felt that like pressure that I can't be like the dumbest person in the room. Like I can be surrounded by smart, highly capable people, but I always have to remember that nobody owes me anything. I have to earn every opportunity that I get, and I have a lot of room to improve. And so like that was one of the things, like even when I go back to episode 1 of my podcast, that started up, I was 8 months into that first gym. They closed down, and then it was either be self-employed or go to a bunch of gyms and get shut down again. So I chose to be self-employed because I couldn't emotionally handle being rejected from more box gyms. I was like, I can't do it anymore. Like I got rejected from one box gym 3 times, like all kinds of places like Orange Theory, etc., etc. It was character building, I will say that. And at the time I was already working in a gym as a spin instructor. But nonetheless, basically what
No offense to Orange Theory, sorry.
No, I think everybody that listens to this will be able to look at my career zoomed out and understand that my storytelling of my career doesn't come from a place where I like condemn anybody. It's just I was a beginner and I had to take my lumps and I had to learn and I had to get more experience and I had to do all these things because I started very, very green. And so everything that happened to me, it wasn't like I didn't deserve to have to learn and grow and stumble and go on that struggle bus. It was that my path needed to come with a bit of setback and resilience, and I needed to prove how bad I wanted to be in this industry. But with that being said, you start your career, you're freshly certified. What was that like for you? Like, what was in your headspace? What were you thinking about? How did that unfold for you?
Well, so I was in a fortunate position where I had, a gym, I think, took a chance on me. I was a brand new trainer. I had never worked in the training space before. I did start personal training with a lot of weightlifting knowledge. And so during my 20s, I spent all of my downtime reading about fitness and anatomy, coaches studies, and, really trying to surround myself with as much knowledge as I possibly could. And that was mostly due to help extend and enhance my own fitness ability. And to also get over a back injury that I had a long time ago. And so I entered into the personal training space with a lot of good knowledge. I was very comfortable on the weight floor. I could demonstrate, during my interviews, different exercises. And I think that they also saw that I could be very communicative with people as well. And so, I start my gig, and I'm surrounded by all of these amazing trainers and coaches. And I was nervous because I'm like, oh man, I got to do what he's doing. Oh shit, she's doing that. What is that? I don't even know how to use that. There's all these things going on, and there's all these people that I've never seen before, and I can't remember their names. And there's all these, techniques and things that I'm seeing for the first time. And I'm like, oh shit, what am I going to do? I have to be these people. And, as soon as I had a person in front of me and I started doing complimentary sessions and I started picking clients up, I'll always remember my first client. And I started getting more comfortable just working one-on-one with that person and just doing things that I knew how to do, and always trying to remember that my clients purchased personal training, but what they really purchased was me and my coaching, my personality. They wanted me, and so it was important that I just continued developing that relationship with them, doing whatever I could to help their fitness journey. And also to always stay open-minded and to continue learning. And I think that as coaches is super imperative, that we always have that willingness to learn. And, over the years, I really have grown my confidence in weight training, in my training with clients and my programming and the relationship that I can build with everybody. But it was uncomfortable in the beginning, but because I was super passionate about it, it felt right at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Well, you outlined something that's super important and also very scalable to this remote training journey that you're on, is just really being able to bring it home to why people work with their trainer. They're choosing a person. It's less about which exercise selection that they choose. Nobody's choosing their trainer because that specific trainer programs hip thrusts and hip cars. That's not the hill that they choose to die on. It's more so, we talked about how kind of intimidated you felt in the gym space. So a client is choosing a trainer because they make fitness less daunting, less intimidating. They are an approachable human being. They are good at communicating. They answer their text messages. They're respectful in their communications. They have etiquette as to when they message people. All these different things matter way more than what some trainers might think. And I mean, the scalable part here is that one of the most valuable things that I've seen people do is treat every last client like it's their only client. Yeah. As though this client is going to be the difference between you eating that week and not eating that week. And that client is what your whole life revolves around. That might seem a little obsessive to some, but for a passionate coach like you or I, it kind of makes sense. It's yep, that sounds about right. By operating in that space with each person on an individual level, all of a sudden, that level of service and commitment to people goes way up. And then all of a sudden, you're going to be the person that they talk about when they go to a dinner party. And that is all it is. It's no magic trick. It is simply creating that strong connection and really being able to relay to that other human being that you are committed to their journey and they are navigating it. It's we aren't the hero of the story. It's the client. It's their moves, their journey, their hurdles, their accomplishments, and their name on the trophy at the end of the day.
I totally agree. And you raise a unique point, is treating every session like it was your last. Every session that I did as an in-person coach and as a virtual session, because I do a few of those too, is I treat every session like it's an interview, and the person that I have in front of me, that is the most important thing to my life. So whether I'm doing their program or working with them in a session, they are taking all of my energy, all of my passion. They are the star of my life at that particular moment in time. And you have to be on, and I learned very early too that when you are a trainer on a strength floor, there are eyes always on you. And so you are basically putting on, in one way, it's kind of like a show, for, the people on the cardio equipment or other, people at the gym admiring what you're doing from afar if they're in between a set or something like that. So you're always on, you're always visible. And, having that person in front of me, it really, I always got so energetic, and all my clients, they kept me going, when I was having a bad day or I was in a rough mindset, just seeing them and working with them one-on-one and, watching the enthusiasm that they have about, completing a PR or completing a set or doing something that they never thought that they could do, that brought me so much joy and it brought me so much adrenaline to my life. The client trainer relationship is very important to me. It's very special.
Absolutely. I mean, I find that when it comes to my Instagram connections, it's that tends to be the brand of trainer that I connect with. There's lots of trainers that follow me for like 30 seconds and then like, I don't like this guy. And then they're out. And I'm like, well, I'm not really like the trainer's trainer. I'm the client's trainer. Like I'm not showing people biomechanics. I'm showing people the donuts that I had around Edmonton. Right. Yeah. But something that I wanted to kind of circle around to, and I'll kind of share my own story again. I had a previous episode with Jake Boley, so if people are wanting to like piece stories together, in that episode I kind of talked about how I went for an interview at a warehouse, and this was in like the past like year. So this is just to kind of illustrate like the ups and downs of a trainer's career, and just like how we can all have bad days and we can have paths go totally different directions. And just to add weight to this story, like we kind of talked about the anticipation of this podcast and the nerves and all that nervousness. Like I was like one decision away from this podcast not even being a thing by now. Like, to put things into perspective, I think I've recorded and accumulated like 360 episodes. I think 220 of them are, maybe 222 of them are online. The rest are archived. But like, I've really put in the reps, and it could have just been gone because of a certain, like an overwhelming feeling of defeat. An overwhelming feeling of like, I can't do this anymore, or like, this isn't good for my health. And I had that sort of like that turning point where I realized that I was more passionate about making it work than I was about making it not work. And it's not to say that like my training income was down to zero. It was still keeping me floating, but it was just like the emotions that I was going through were having me close to that point where I was just ready to like call her quits. And to add some context to this, like the pandemic, it was like a rocky road for just about everybody I know. Like some people, they were able to learn and grow and all these different things, so they have more pros to take away from it than cons. But more likely than not, they went through their rocky road earlier in their life. Like maybe they overcame a drug addiction, or maybe they overcame like a separation, or all these different things. But like even in the earlier part of the pandemic, like I always give credit to Kyle Dobbs. Like he was a pivotal person for me. That's why I promote his mentorship so heavily, because he's been a solid mentor and role model for me, who's kind of come through and kind of shown me like why I want to do this, how I can do this realistically, the importance of boundaries, the importance of family, the importance of networking and kind of like collaborating with your friends and lifting other people up. He's one of the most well-known people that has promoted my show. He promoted a past episode, and it's like, those are the things that you don't forget. So it's like people like that have supported me to stay in the game. And yet, despite all of that, I still had this moment where despite all the things that were going well for me, despite like having referrals sent my way and still having in-person clients, and I would have had to cancel things and shut things down to effectively do this warehouse job. Despite all of that, I still like, it was something that I had to really think about. It was something that I had to ruminate about and be like, okay, why am I doing this? And is it worth it to keep pushing forward? And then it came down to like an environmental aspect. So by environment, I mean just like scenery, sort of like workflow, what you see when you wake up in the morning, what's out the window. And for a moment in time, I was like, I was possessed. I was going to move to Banff. I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to move to Banff. And the funny thing is, I was actually like, I'm really diving down some rabbit holes here, but it'll hopefully add some context and make it easier for you to storytell on your end too. But I was on a call for a job interview where I would actually be in Banff, and I could also do that at the same time as doing my pre-existing remote work, which would probably cover a lot of bills. But it wasn't quite going to be enough, because like I'd have to rent out my condo, I'd have to do all these things, a lot of logistical challenges. Mountain towns are really expensive. And so I was on the call, and for the particular role that I was interviewing for, they also had opportunities in Edmonton. So I was like, well, can you guys pay this wage? Because I crunched all the numbers, I kind of knew what I needed to make. And like, unfortunately, we can't. And I was like, okay. What about an opportunity in Edmonton? And so when I took the opportunity in Edmonton, that little pivot was the stepping stone that I needed to layer on some momentum, get that sense of like community. I took a role with Lululemon for about 5 or 6 months, and then I ended the contract early because I was ready to continue with my own projects. But it's funny how life does these things, and you can be at that moment where you're ready to just quit. Like when we're like, have you ever had any bad days? Like our bad days are like, you can still remember them. They're clear as day. Like you can spell out exactly what happened and how close things were to just coming to a full halt. Like I would have literally had to tell like some clients that I couldn't train them because I wouldn't be available anymore. And that would have been because of the emotions that this industry tosses at us. And it's crazy. So I've shared my story. What has it been that's led up to you choosing this remote self-employed boss lady journey that you're on?
Boss lady. So I would say that right before the pandemic, it was 2019. So 2019 was a very, very, very busy year for me. I was racking in a lot of sessions per month. And by the end of the year, I was just burnt out. I was only, I think at that point, maybe 3 years into my career. And I was burnt out. And I would say that's very common for trainers to have that burnt out point in time at around 3 years. So at the end of 2019, I was really burnt out. I was very tired. I had no social life. And my entire life was sessions and my clients and, making money and, trying to afford a really expensive apartment in Washington, D.C. So I started to make some really positive changes, started to have a little bit more of a social life, started getting out a little bit more, but then 2020 hit. So I would say that 2020 was just a matter of getting, surviving each day, getting through each day one at a time, and being there for my clients. But then when things started to pick back up in 2021, I found myself in a very similar position as I did in 2019. And I was on this continuous hamster wheel where I would work all day, morning sessions, afternoon sessions, evening sessions, random times during the day, up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, get home 8 or 9 or something like that. So it was day in and day out of a lot of sessions and just being on this continuous hamster wheel with no time for me. And I found myself with a lot of added anxiety and a lot of just depression. And I remember that there were countless evenings that I would come home, completely crash on my floor and just cry. And that's not a way to live at all. And it was almost like, when you have a baby or a toddler that is so tired that they just cry. That was me. Like, I was so tired and exhausted that I just cried, and I didn't know what to do with all of this inner frustration and anxiety inside of me. And I remember there would be random points during the day or even the morning. I would just break down bawling at like 5:55 in the morning, right before a 6 a.m. session, and then try and just, hide it all inside, clean myself up, and then put on a really happy face for my client who deserved to have the energy from me. And so it became this vicious cycle that I found myself in. And when I started working with Kyle, with my own strength training, I started working with Kyle Kyle Dobbs, I should say, back in March of 2021. And I took him on as a coach for my own strength. And he had his mentorship coming up, mentorship for business owners, people in the fitness space. And so I just decided to sign up. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. But the more that we went through the mentorship, the more I thought, okay, this might be a good path for me in the future. And I didn't know when I was going to switch over to becoming a remote coach. But I knew that at some point in my life, I had to make a change for myself, because doing what I was doing, living the life that I was, as much as I love, in-person training, I didn't have a life for me. And, going home and just breaking down, like that's not how you're supposed to live life. And so collectively, throughout the years, I've had times when this career has been really hard and, smooth sailing. But I think that's with every sort of industry where you have these ebbs and flows. But it just got to the point where, those down periods for myself were too down, and I needed to make some more change.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack, and there's a lot of directions that we can take things. I like to highlight Kyle Dobbs' experience with a lot of the people who have been on this podcast, because it kind of comes down to sort of like this vision. And like you start to learn that in order to have the balance that, like, whatever balance looks like for us, because it's not really definable and it's different for each person. Some people have a greater work capacity for some things, and other people have like just very important boundaries that need to be maintained. Like, I'll use myself as an example. For myself, ever since I started in the fitness industry, as a trainer specifically, because I was a spin instructor and I was working for Yeg Fitness magazine for a bit part-time while I was still in my old career. So I was kind of like doing some fitnessy things on the side. But when it was just like back up against the wall, either sink or swim, have a mortgage to pay, have car payments to pay, all these expenses, and if I fail, I am screwed. when it came down to that point, that's when I started this sort of like tradition where every single day I'd call up my parents. And that can seem super lame to some people, but it became a non-negotiable for me because they're like my backbone. And then as time went on, I established like a group chat with my brothers. And I try to just make sure that in every week I'm at least communicating with them. Like it's neat when we're able to chat back and forth each day, but sometimes like life takes control. And then another thing that I did was for birthdays in my family, I decided I want to do activity days. So I have 2 nieces, and when it's like their birthday, I spend like the day with them. And so that means like I'm not booking a training session that day. I'm not booking work that day. That is my niece's day. And it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter where I am at financially. Whatever we have to do to have a fun day, we do it. Sometimes I innovate. Sometimes we're doing like some long ass walks. And sometimes we're going to like a cool museum or a cool park or going out and having a big serving of like Vietnamese food. And those are the things that I decided were important to me. And then everything about my work had to fit around that. And that's sort of my biggest takeaway from the mentorship. And then that's why I promote it, because I see people being happier as trainers with that frame of mind and that path going forward than trying to do it like the opposite way around. So what have been some things that you're taking some time for you're filling your cup? What are the things that you're establishing now that your business is going to be built around to maintain you being happy?
Oh boy. Oh, I think that, this is all really new to me. And I think that the primary goal right now is to take care of my current clients that I have right now, and to also build better relationships with my online community, and continuing to put content out there and have more dedication to putting more content out onto Instagram that showcases what I believe in. I only recently started posting more on social media, I don't know, maybe in the last 4 to 5 months. But before that, it was very sporadic. But that was because I didn't have any time to really dedicate to it. But then last year, I started putting more content out there so that I could get more comfortable putting my face on social media, letting people know who I was. And just continuing to build that brand, my brand, and who I am, and putting content out there to help other individuals. And so I think between those two right now, that's my current goal. My third goal is to recover from some shoulder surgery that I'm having tomorrow. So, I'm going to be a little out of commission for a few weeks now. So, just taking care of the folks that I currently have on my team and putting out content when I can for the next few weeks is going to be my priority. Mm-hmm. But also making relationships with other people in the fitness space and doing a podcast.
Totally. Well, I mean, one thing that I've learned about content when it comes to like just return on investment, essentially, like time is time, whether it's time spent in your career or time spent in your life. And sometimes we need to assess the amount of time that's spent making content. And like people can look back at my Instagram thing and be like, man, he spent a lot of time on the content. Like that's why I can speak to this, because I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way, where I've devoted tons and tons of time to like putting out endless podcast episodes and to putting out like tons of different like long-winded posts with long ass captions and just like completely just spilling my heart out into the universe. And then I've realized like you need to look at it from a return on investment standpoint. Sure. Yeah. And sometimes to reallocate that time that you have, like this abundance of time that you'll have at your disposal. Sometimes to do a deep dive into a book, or to learn about something non-fitness, or to take up like a creative modality. All of a sudden you take that back into your coaching, back into your content creation, and it gets refined. I think anybody that listens to this show will regularly, and I don't know who they are, so if somebody's actually listening to this episode, please, for the love of goodness, reach out and let me know, because I have no idea who my audience is. But anybody that's listening will have noticed that I kind of like did a bit of a gap between like January/February and now, where I barely put out any episodes. Like I put out some sporadic ones every week or every second week kind of thing, but it wasn't anywhere near the frequency that I've had in past months. Like there's been some weeks where I've interviewed 7 people in a week and published them all, just like a madman. But I've realized that as I try and push more in a direction that is just not ready for me to push, I don't get anything out of it. And it's that time is time is time is time.
Yeah.
And as people looking to grow our brand and grow in our space and be balanced out and happy and fulfilled, that is a tough truth that we need to sit with. We need to realize that like Instagram does not matter. Like I personally make a very good income from Instagram content creation. And so I can say Instagram matters, but I can also say Instagram doesn't matter. You take the time to make that content, you put it up, and you walk away. And that goes for our branding ourselves here too. Because if you dedicate all this time to things that are not bringing you joy directly, you're never going to get that time back.
Yeah.
And so as you're looking to build your brand, I would look at like taking a step back and really leaning into what is it that your life looks like when you are truly happy. Because if you do not build it that way, it's not going to happen. Because I've done it the backwards way before. And it's like trying to do the same thing over and over with the same outcome and wondering why nothing changed. It's because I didn't change anything in my delivery. So that is something that I've learned the hard way. So in hearing you kind of like tell the journey of like what your ideal life looks like, I'm challenging you to step it up a notch. So I'll kind of give you a cue here. When you're thinking about like you bought your cool truck, you're equipping yourself for success. I think I had seen when I was like preparing the material for this episode, you're someone who has traveled a lot in the past. What's on your bucket list for travel? And it can be like a plane ride, it can be a road trip, whatever it may be. Like, where is your life going to take you in the next couple of years?
Oh man. So yes, I love traveling. It's a huge passion of mine. I don't know if I'll do any international travel this year. But being that I have my new 4Runner, I'm able to do a lot more off-road and camping in my vehicle now than I ever was able to. So my plan is to actually go cross country. And I'm hoping maybe in the fall, winter timeframe, hit up northern Arizona, southern Utah, and then depending on how the months and weather goes, I'd love to hit up Canada. So
come on up to Canada.
All the spots in Canada. But there's so many places around the United States that I want to visit. I've done some international travel. But being that I really want to work more on landscape photography, I mean, America has some beautiful landscapes. It's gorgeous. I mean, our backyard is awesome. Not maybe in the city, but when you go outside of the city, it's gorgeous. And I want to see more of that. And I want to be able to connect with more people and get outside of my bubble. I've been living in a basement for 6 years. I've been surrounded by the same people every single day for 6 years. They're great people. But when you see the same people for 6 years in a basement and have no sunlight, then you want to get outside of your bubble. So, I mean, even this past week, because I recently ended my position at my large box gym, even this week, like I have so much more energy because I'm actually seeing daylight. I'm talking to more people. I'm willing to have more small talk conversations with, people at the grocery store, at my range, or, just anywhere. And not feeling like I'm so rushed with everything, scarfing down every meal, rushing to this appointment, hauling ass on the beltway. It's nice to kind of slow down just a little tiny bit. And just take a few breaths every once in a while, because I haven't done that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of a certified workaholic.
I think many people in the fitness industry are. And every time, oftentimes I get feedback that I get a little bit preachy. And so people are going to be able to pick that out in this episode, because I've almost taken more of the microphone than I needed to. But having put that out on the table, so now it's out of the way, now you can't call me out on it because I already said it about myself. Nonetheless, something that's worked very well for me and that I've learned from a lot of people that I look up to is not only setting those sort of quarterly goals where it's finite, it's pen to paper, maybe even scheduled in the calendar with deadlines. But also looking at the end goal. If you look at 12 months from now and you've made this list of the places that you want to go and the photography that you want to do, and then reverse engineering it. So being able to dedicate how many hours a week to those tasks, and then being able to delegate accordingly to your environment. So by that I mean, you go for this surgery, there's some things you can't do, but there's some things that you can do. An example that's top of mind for me right now is I'm connected with a lot of videographers in Canada, and a lot of the time they're able to do content exchanges. So they stay at an accommodation, they do photography or videography at that location, and their accommodation is covered. And that also goes for all kinds of different brands and stuff. And so as fitness professionals with other skills, with a diversified skill set, we are not stuck in a box. There's no reason why we cannot plan for success. So when you have this downtime, this is the preachiness in me coming out and just saying, start looking at the opportunities that you have to plan out that roadmap for your future. If you know where you want to be going 6 months from now, look at the places, look at the social media, connect with them, build relationships, show them what you can do with photography, and see what opportunities that you can drum up. Because when you're able to, this has been my strong suit. I've been able to monetize my skills outside of being a trainer and coach. It's helped me survive. It's helped me thrive. It's helped me have that work-life balance. It's put me in a very strong position now where I'm able to do about half in person, half remote, portion of it out of the fitness industry, portion of it in the fitness industry, and there's direct crossover. But when you're able to monetize more of the things that you naturally do and enjoy doing, you get the time back. Because we run out of time, and you get that time back that you're able to enjoy yourself.
Yeah. And I think that, there is such a thing as working too much, even if you're doing something that you love. And so you have to create some boundaries for yourself and make sure that you have that personal time, whether it be with your friends, your family, and your personal hobbies. So that's what this year is about, for me, rediscovering who I am as a person, while also fulfilling my passion as a coach to help other individuals. But also it's, working on things that I'm also passionate about in my hobby life, like photography and traveling. And I think a big component of why I like traveling so much is also the type of people that you meet, because I do a lot of solo travel. And when you do solo travel, you're more willing to talk to individuals because you want to connect with people. So the first thing I do when I go to a new space or a new area is I connect with locals. I think a really good example was when I went out to southern Utah in last February, a year ago. I didn't really know the area. I didn't really do a whole lot of research about where I was going, what I wanted to do. And so I found this photographer on Instagram. I'm like, okay, he seems like he's a local here. He's done a lot of world travel. He looks like a photographer. Like, he doesn't look like he's going to kill me. Like, let's reach out to this person. So I reached out and said, hey, I'm hitting up Southern Utah. Give me your tips. What do you got here? And we communicated with each other all week. And at the end of the week, we actually went camping with each other. We did some great hiking, had an awesome, camp night. And it was just really cool to connect with another individual who's also active and also likes similar hobbies that you have too. And I think that's the other component that I love so much about this industry is that we all have a passion for wellness and fitness, and we get it. We don't have to explain to each other like, oh, why are you eating broccoli? Like, why are you going to the gym? Like, huh? Like, we get it. And so when you're surrounded by people who have similar values as you, who are like-minded, but have different viewpoints, different focuses, different opinions about things, or different ways of doing stuff, that creates a really cool community, no matter what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. So the time has flown by today. I have one final question for you. And this is a question I've asked all kinds of different guests. The question is, if you were to give the audience a challenge for the day, what would that challenge be? And think about something that you think could, in a span of 24 hours, really make their life better. Maybe not change the game, but just make them maybe in a better mood than they are.
Drink water. No. I think that one of the things that I always have my clients do is write down their goals. And you actually had kind of touched upon this when you're talking about my travels, is writing down your goals and writing down things that you would like to achieve. I'm not really a big fan of vision boards and slapping pictures of other people that you don't know onto a board. But really just taking the time to sit down and physically write a few things that you would like to do. And it doesn't have to pertain to, strength training or fitness or your nutrition, but just write down some things that you would like to achieve in the next year or a couple of years. And then work backwards.
Sounds
and
perfect.
Kind of develop what type of plan for yourself.
Solid. Well, thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you. Yes. It was fun. My first one. How'd I do?